Hi people, it's me, Anya. My pronouns are she and her, and welcome back to my channel for my favorite books of the year. It is a little breezy out today, so I apologize for the wind noise, but without any further ado, the first book on this list is called Fire Becomes Her. This story is a YA fantasy following a young bisexual, aromantic main character who must weigh her decision to climb the social ladder against her heart in a world where magic buys votes. This story is absolutely so fantastic, and I really enjoyed it. So with that said, I would highly recommend it. First of all the characters were so well developed and distinct, and I truly fell in love with them. Second of all of the different friendships and the QPR were absolutely so well paced and so well done. The plot was so intriguing and so engaging. The world building was so interesting and absolutely so inventive. I believe that the world building is jazz age 1920s inspired, and that definitely was very prominent in this story. Literally the magic and everything was so well developed and so well done. This book is so underrated and it deserves so much more hype. The queer representation was so wonderful, so spot on, so off the charts. Anyway, all that to say, I really love this book and I would highly recommend it. The next book on this list is called Ophelia After All. This story is a YA contemporary following a young, half-Cuban, queer main character navigating the end of high school, friendship drama, and her own sexuality. This story is absolutely so fantastic, and it's so emotional. Honestly, I think I cried about 4 different times because I was so emotionally invested in the characters and in the events and in the friendships and in the sapphic sexuality representation. This story hit all the right places. It's so good. This book deserves all of its hype and so much more because everything felt so authentic and so well developed and absolutely so well paced. I'm so excited for this author's next book in May. I think it's called You Don't Have a Shot, and it's about soccer sapphics or something like that. But anyway, this book was absolutely so fantastic because the characters were all so well developed and so distinct. The friendships were so lovely and so wonderful. The queer representation felt so authentic and so well done. The plot was so intriguing and so engaging. The family dynamics as well as the friendships were so lovely and absolutely so wonderful. So anyway, all that to say, this book is absolutely so fantastic and I would highly recommend it. The next book on this list is called Redemptor. For those who don't know, this book is a YA fantasy sequel to Raybearer, which I rated 4 out of 5 stars, but I rated the sequel here 5 out of 5 stars because I absolutely loved it. I can't quite explain to you the synopsis without spoiling the first book, but just know that this book was a really solid sequel. It was absolutely so amazing and so well done. The characters were so well developed and so distinct. The world building was so excellent, and it was expanded upon from the first book, but also it was so good in this book too. It was so inventive and absolutely so immersive. The plot was so intriguing and so engaging. The friendships were so lovely and absolutely so wonderful. This book is so fantastic and it's so well done. And with that said, it deserves all of its hype and so much more. I would argue actually that this book deserves more hype than the first book, which I know is a really tall order since so many people loved the first book so much. But trust me, I loved this one more than the first book. So anyway, all that to say, this book is absolutely so fantastic and I would gladly read more from the author in the future. So with all that said, I would highly recommend it. The next book on this list is called Full Flight. This story is a YA contemporary following a young main character who's navigating her first love and what happens when it's over too soon. This story is absolutely so fantastic and it's so emotional. And again, I think I cried about 3 or 4 times, which really goes to show how invested I was in the characters and in the events, and especially in the romance. This story is absolutely so fantastic and it's so well done. The writing is so lyrical and it's so beautiful. I'm so excited for the author's next book, which I think comes out in March or April if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, this book was so good. The characters were so well developed and so distinct. The plot was so intriguing and so engaging. The romance was so well paced and it was absolutely so cute. I was so invested in the story from the beginning to the end. There was no point in the story where I felt like it wasn't as emotional and as well paced. You know what I mean? This book is so good. I thought it was so wonderful, so lovely, so emotional, and so well done overall. Basically, all that I'm trying to say is that this book is absolutely so incredible, and I really, really enjoyed it. So with that, I would highly, highly recommend it. The next book on this list is called Every Variable of Us. This story is a YA contemporary following a young black bisexual main character who is a former basketball athlete who joins a STEM team as her way out of the hood. I don't know if that made any sense at all, but basically this book is so good and it's absolutely so fantastic. First of all, the black queer experience felt so authentic and so well done. The characters were so well developed and so distinct. The friendships were so lovely and so wonderful, and they truly felt so wholesome. The sapphic romance was so well paced, and it literally made so much sense. Friends to lovers is literally my favorite romantic trope, and this author literally did it so well. This book is absolutely so fantastic, and it was so well done. This story is so underrated, and it deserves so much more hype, which I know I say all the time, but we all know that black queer books are so underrated, and they deserve so much more attention and just as much attention and recognition as their white counterparts. But anyway, I digress. This book is absolutely so fantastic, and it's so emotional, and it's so well done in literally every single element. So with that said, I would highly, highly recommend it. The next book on this list is called Kiss and Tell. This story is a YA contemporary following a young gay boy in a boy band and what it means to be queer in the spotlight. This story is absolutely so fantastic, and it was so emotional, and I really, really loved it. First of all, the characters were so well developed and so distinct. Second of all, the friendships within the boy band felt so lovely and so wonderful, and I just really, really enjoyed it. All the musical celebrity elements felt so honest and so well done. The plot was so intriguing and so engaging. Like, the romance was so cute and so well developed. Many people have criticized this book for having a main character who's very selfish, but I would argue that that's the point. You know what I mean? I don't know if that makes any sense at all, but basically this book was so good, and I really felt it. I felt for the characters, for the main character especially. Like, this book is so good. It was one of my most anticipated 2022 new releases, and it not only met that expectation but exceeded it. So with that said, I really, really enjoyed it, and with that said, I would highly, highly recommend it. The next book on this list is called Blood Like Magic. For those who don't know, this book is a YA urban fantasy following a young witch who must sacrifice her first love to save her family's magic. Except that she's never fallen in love before, so she doesn't really have a first love to sacrifice at all. So she's in a bit of a pickle. This story is so fantastic, and it's absolutely so well done. I'm so excited for the author's next book, which I believe comes out in late February, and it's called Delicious Monsters or something like that. But anyway, this story was so good. First of all, the world building was so fantastic and so magical. This book is kind of like set in the future, so one could argue that it technically constitutes as a science fiction story. But anyway, all the different science fiction magical elements made so much sense, and I typically don't read science fiction all too often because it often doesn't make sense, but this book did, and I really, really appreciated that. Anyway, I digress. The plot was so intriguing and so engaging. The family dynamics felt so authentic and so well done. Literally, like, the romance was so well paced and so cute. This book deserves all the hype and so much more because it's absolutely so fantastic and so well done. The characters were so well developed and so distinct. Anyway, all that to say, I would highly, highly recommend this book. The next book on this list is called Arden Grey. This story is a YA contemporary following a young asexual sapphic main character who starts to question if her relationship with her absent mom was toxic. This story is absolutely so fantastic and so well done. There is a trigger warning on it for, obviously, a parental mother-daughter toxic relationship, so if that is triggering to you, I would avoid this book at all costs. But anyway, I thought this book was absolutely so fantastic, so emotional, and so well developed in absolutely every single element. First of all, the sapphic romance was literally so lovely and so wonderful. The queer representation in the main character felt so authentic and so well done. The plot was so intriguing and so engaging. The family dynamics were so lovely and so well done, and so were the friendships. Like, this book is so good, and it deserves so much more hype because it's absolutely so good, so great, and so well done. I will gladly read more from this author in the future. I think they have another book coming out this year, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe next year. But anyway, I'm so excited to read whatever they have next because literally this book was so good, so great, so wonderful. Anyway, all that to say, I would highly, highly recommend this book. The next book on this list is called Jennifer Chan Is Not Alone. This story is a middle grade contemporary that follows a young girl who thought that she understood her role in the social hierarchy in middle school until the new girl causes her to challenge that, and then the new girl goes missing. This book is absolutely so fantastic and it's so wonderful. I love reading about characters like this. Not necessarily the characters who challenge the norm, the social order, but the bystanders who see that happening and have to decide which side to take. Because I feel like we're all bystanders ourselves, and that character is more relatable to me than the person who actually does the challenging themselves. I don't know if that made any sense at all, and I know that the sun is rather distracting right now. But anyway, the point is, this book is absolutely so fantastic and I really, really enjoyed it. The characters felt so authentic, so well developed, so well done. The plot was so intriguing and so engaging. The friendships were so lovely and so wonderful. Literally, this book deserves all the hype and so much more because it's absolutely so fantastic and it's so authentic and it's so well done. Literally, the story is so emotional and I really, really enjoyed it. So with all that said, I would highly, highly recommend it. The next book on this list is called The Cartographers. This story is an adult contemporary thriller following a young woman who finds a secret map in her deceased father's belongings, and the secret map holds a deadly secret. This story is absolutely so fantastic and it's so well done. First of all, the plot was so intriguing and so engaging and so well done. This story is absolutely so brilliant, so fascinating, so well done, and I was so invested in it every single step of the way. Like, this book is so good. The characters were so well developed and so distinct. Like, the romance was so lovely. Like, her relationship with her parents felt so well done and so awesome. This book was absolutely so captivating. I was on the edge of my seat every single page because this book is so good. The maps were so interesting, so fascinating, so brilliant, so excellent, so well done. This book is so good and it deserves all of the hype and so much more. So anyway, with all that said, I would highly, highly recommend it. The next book on this list is called Yonder. This story is a middle grade historical fiction story that follows a young boy when his mentor goes missing in 1942. This story is absolutely so fantastic and it's so well done, and I was so emotionally invested in the story and in the characters and in the events. Like, first of all, the characters were so well developed and so distinct, and they each felt so authentic. The plot was so intriguing and so engaging. The world building felt so wonderful and so authentic and so well done. I typically read a lot of World War II historical fiction novels, but this book stands out because it's so good and it's so well done. This author captures a slice of American life so flawlessly, so honestly, so raw. This book is so good and it's absolutely so underrated and it deserves so much more hype. So with all that said, I would highly, highly recommend it because this book is so fantastic and it's so good. So anyway, all that to say, I would highly, highly recommend it. The next book on this list is called Twice as Perfect. This story is a YA contemporary following a young Nigerian Canadian main character as she is navigating a big family wedding, pressure from her parents about her future, and an estranged older brother. This book is absolutely so fantastic and it's so emotional, and it really amplifies my expectations for the author's next book, which I believe comes out in May of this year, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, this book was so fantastic and it was so well done. First of all, I loved the family dynamics so much. I don't know what this says about me, but I love reading about complex, messy family dynamics, especially with estranged siblings. The plot was so intriguing and so engaging. The characters were so well developed and so distinct. This book deserves all of its hype and so much more because it's absolutely so good, and it felt so authentic and so rich with the Nigerian and Canadian culture. This book is so good, and it deserves all of its hype and so much more. So with all that said, I would highly, highly recommend it. The next book on this list is called Seton Girls. This book is a YA contemporary gritty thriller about a young girl who learns about the dark underbelly of high school football after the captain of the team is accused of sexual assault. So there is a huge trigger warning on this book for sexual assault and the exploitation of teenage girls. So if any of that is triggering to you, I would avoid this book at all costs. This book is absolutely so fantastic, and it felt so authentic and so raw and absolutely so honest. This book is so underrated, and it deserves so much more hype. First of all, the plot was so intriguing and so engaging. The characters felt so well developed and so distinct. The friendships were so lovely and so wonderful. Literally, this book is so good. The topic of sexual assault felt so timely and so important because I know so many survivors of sexual assault, so it felt like it hit so close to home. You know what I mean? Like, this book is so good, and it's absolutely so fantastic. It was so gritty and so well done because it felt so honest and so authentic. I don't know if that makes any sense at all, but basically I would highly, highly recommend this book because I really, really enjoyed it. The next book on this list is called The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. For those who don't know, this book is an adult historical fiction that dictates the life of Evelyn Hugo, and I absolutely loved it so much. First of all, the characters were so well developed and so distinct. Each one of them felt so authentic and so well done. The sapphic romance was so lovely, so wonderful, so well paced. The plot was so intriguing and so engaging. Literally, this book is so good, and it was absolutely so emotional. I was so emotionally invested in the characters and in the events and in everything that was happening. I was sobbing in the last 100 pages because literally I was so invested in everything that was happening. This book deserves all of its hype and so much more. I don't trust Netflix with the adaptation because you can't mess with perfection. This story is so brilliant, so excellent, so perfect, so fascinating, so interesting, absolutely so fantastic. So anyway, with all that said, I would highly, highly recommend this book if you haven't read it already. The next book on this list is called Nothing Sung and Nothing Spoken. This story is a YA historical fiction following a young sapphic main character set in Berlin in the 1930s, the summer before World War II, and it's absolutely so fantastic and so well done. This book was also one of my most anticipated 2022 new releases, and it not only met those expectations, but exceeded them. First of all, the writing was so lyrical and absolutely so beautiful. This author is so talented. The sapphic romance was so cute, so lovely, so wonderful. The characters were so well developed and so distinct. Like, the world building was so immersive and so inventive. This time period is so underrepresented, and I would love to learn more about it. Literally, this book is so good, and it's so well developed. I just really, really enjoyed it because I was literally so invested in this story from the very beginning to the end because I was so emotionally invested in the characters and in the story, and especially in the events. Literally, this book is so good, and it's absolutely so wonderful. So anyway, all that to say, this book deserves all of its hype and so much more. So with that said, I would highly, highly recommend it. The next book on this list is called Show Us Who You Are. This story is a middle-grade contemporary science fiction story that follows a young autistic main character who gets wrapped up in some artificial intelligence. This story is absolutely so fantastic and it's so well done. If you didn't know, I'm autistic, so naturally I love characters who are like me in that sense, and the disability representation in the story was so well done and so wonderful, and the conversations surrounding like eugenics, especially disabilities, felt so timely, so authentic, and absolutely so important. The plot was so intriguing and so engaging. The friendships were so lovely and so well done. The family dynamics were so lovely and so great. This book is so underrated, and it deserves so much more hype. This book is so good, it's so timely, and it's so important. And I know that so many young autistic people out there could really relate to this, because literally the main character felt so authentic, and I felt all of her emotions, her happiness and her joy, as well as her frustrations as well. I don't know if that made any sense at all, but essentially this book was so fantastic, and it was so emotional and so well done and so well paced. So anyway, with all that said, I would highly recommend this book. The next book on this list is called The Wicked Remain. This story is a YA dark academia urban fantasy sequel to the Grimrose Girls, and I really enjoyed it. Much more than the prequel, actually. First of all, the characters are all so well developed and so distinct, and I love all of their perspectives so much because they were so well incorporated together. Second of all, the plot is so intriguing and so engaging. Third of all, the queer representation was so wonderful and absolutely so lovely, and so was the disability representation. Literally, this book is so good, and it deserves all of its hype and so much more. I was so invested in this story, much more than I was in the prequel, actually, because I love these characters so much. Literally, like, I love them. I want to be part of their friend group. Not to the point that I would be, like, involved in all the events that happen to them, but, like, I love them so much because they seem so authentic and so real and so well done. You know what I mean? I don't know if that made any sense at all, but basically, I love them so much. Like, the magic in the story was also so wonderful, but the true magic was their friendship. I know that's about the cheesiest thing that I've ever said, but this book is so good and it's so well done. I really enjoyed it because it was so well developed in literally every single element. So anyway, all that to say, this book was a really solid sequel, and I would highly recommend it. The last book on this list, and certainly not the least, is called We Deserve Monuments. This story is a YA contemporary that follows a young, half-black, pansexual main character as a swoon-worthy romance, family secrets, and a slow-burn mystery all collide, and it talks about how racial violence can ripple down generations. I don't know if that made any sense at all, because I know that that was a rather vague synopsis, but anyway, this book is so fantastic, and I really enjoyed it. First of all, the plot was so intriguing and so engaging. Second of all of the different family perspectives and stories felt so authentic and so well done, and it made the characters so distinct and so lovely. The sapphic romance was so lovely and so well paced. This book is so fantastic, and it was so emotional. Literally, like, I was so invested in the characters and in the events and basically in everything. This book is so good because it felt so interesting and so immersive and so emotional. I will gladly read more from this author in the future because literally they are so talented. This book was so fantastic, and it deserves all the hype and so much more. So anyway, all that to say, I would highly recommend this book. So, in conclusion, those were my favorite books of 2022. As I explained in my last video, I had a pretty great, satisfying reading year, and I really hope that 2023 is the same. If you didn't know, I talked about these books in chronological order, so not necessarily from best to worst or from worst to best, because I couldn't quite rank them since they were technically all of my favorites of the year. I don't know if that made any sense at all, but basically, if you enjoyed this video, please don't hesitate to give it a big thumbs up. Comment down below the pizza emoji if you made it all the way to the end of the video. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to my channel if you're new, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!